Hello everyone! Just like the other couple of patches, this one hasn't brought any global changes to the game balance either. Instead, Riot Games focused on balancing certain specific champions. The biggest change here is obviously the rework of Akali, which we will cover in a separate video. In this one, we will focus on the changes made to other champions, to the perfect timing rune, and also to items for marksmen and supports, so let's get right to it. We'll start with the support champions. This patch has affected two of the most popular support heroes of solo queue, Fiddlesticks and Morgana. The first one has received a mana cost increase for the Dark Wind, as well as a decrease to its damage output. From now on, it will be a lot harder for Fiddlesticks to keep his opponents low on health right from the start. Morgana has received a mana cost increase to her Black Shield, which isn't all that bad. The bad thing is that she has a lower mana regeneration rate now. However, those changes will most likely not really affect the positions those two are currently in. Those nerfs don't really affect their strongest sides after all. Fiddlesticks still has his strong targetable crowd control source. Morgana's Dark Binding still roots people for an eternity, and her Black Shield still protects the targets from any source of crowd control imaginable. On the other hand, Thresh has received a buff now that he's been pushed out of the meta by Pyke, and that's a bad thing. Thresh used to be strong before, but now he will have even more damage from the very beginning. If you're a fan of aggressive early game, and you have Pyke banned, do not hesitate to pick Thresh instead. You'll also have a lower cooldown on your Lantern later in the game as a cool bonus. If you have watched our latest guide about Fizz, where we talked about whether or not you should level up his W ability, then you must remember that for patch 8.14, the answer was no. The damage increase just wasn't worth the time Fizz would have had to spend to deal all of it using his auto attacks. However, in patch 8.15, everything suddenly changes. The damage dealt by the Trident at level 5 has been increased by 50 points, and the damage ratio on hit has been increased from 30 to 40%. With that kind of performance, prioritizing it doesn't look like a bad idea anymore. Overall, it should be obvious that Fizz is about to come back into the meta, as he will be equally useful against both squishes and fighters. Better nerf Aurelia. The history repeats itself. Riot Games have completed the cycle and now are back at their constant Aurelia nerfing phase. Having your champions a bit overpowered upon release is alright, and we all understand that. But after all the nerfs she's received up to patch 8.14, her win rate has dropped below 50% on every lane aside from the bot lane, where it capped around 50%. But she was still being used by the professional players, so what we're seeing is this champion balance changes based on the professional scene performance. This will make another hit to her solo queue performance. The problem of this 8.15 nerf is that Aurelia's early game will become too weak. Yes, her passive deals more damage now, and her basic attributes are a bit higher, but she still deals less damage early on, and as of right now, this is the most important part of your solo queue success. Now, Kindred has really got popular and strong both in professional matches and the solo queue. So this nerf was expected and somewhat anticipated. However, the attack speed decrease on her Wolf and an increase on her ultimate's cooldown will hardly push her away from the very top of the food chain. Those two are still too strong during the early game, and that lets them snowball into the late game very easily. Why would you care about your ultimate cooldown when you already have 10 marks and can kill any champion in just a couple of seconds? Lee Sin is getting his Resonating Strike changed. This ability now has a lower basic damage and no longer deals bonus execution damage. However, he gets a very decent attack damage scaling on it, as well as a damage amplification based on the target's missing health. This is a very good change for solo queue, where Electrocute Lee Sins with the Warrior Enchantment and Drekthar will finally get a chance to wreak some havoc. Time to make use of that until it gets nerfed. Olaf receives a 15% attack speed increase to his W. This is a buff aimed at breathing some life into this long-forgotten champion. He was really strong even before this buff and was just wildly unpopular. And we do recommend you play him in any rating level there is. He's got an amazing jungle clearing speed and a high dueling potential. What else do you need for solo queue? Just as Queen has appeared in the Korean League, Riot Games immediately strike her down. 4 basic armor points less. That's a very serious hit to her early game. She still remains strong in low to average ratings, where people are used to simply ignoring Queen until better times come, so this change will not really affect her there. But she will become a lot less popular in the higher ratings, that's for sure. Syndra receives a cool buff. Extra 20 points of damage will make your laning phase a bit more comfortable against mages and fighters alike. Alright, now let's get to the changes made to the support item costs. Their prices were increased by 50 gold. It means that you will no longer be able to buy a refillable potion with it anymore. But it doesn't matter, no one really bothered to buy it in the current meta anyways. The trades became a real frequent thing during the laning phase, so that potion wasn't really enough. This change was aimed more at decreasing the amount of potions the supports have at the start of the match. What will that change? Well, it will make the laning phase more aggressive. Farming couples effectively lose a third of their strength this way. This will increase the value of such aggressive supports as Thresh and Pyke, and also the Ardent Sensor users like Nami, Janna or Karma. Riot Games are lowering the prices on items for marksmen. Infinity Edge, Stormrazor, Mercurial Scimitar, and also the critical chance items like Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Sheath, Phantom Dancer and Runaan's Hurricane will all lose up to 400 gold in costs. On the one hand, that's good, since those items will now be bought a bit earlier. This will be appreciated a lot by every marksman, especially after the mid-season changes. However, these items have lost some of their attributes. Infinity Edge, for example, has lost 1/3 of its true damage critical strike conversion, and 10 points of attack damage bonus. This is obviously not worth 200 gold, it's losing in price. However, this is still a strong buff for marksmen. Before that, Jinx had to spend 9,700 gold to buy 3 items, but now she only has to spend 9,000. That will lower the time marksmen require to reach their peak of power, and they will be a little less behind than mages and fighters in this regard. Alright, let's get to the last change of patch 8.15, specifically the nerf of the perfect timing rune. Riot Games just cannot balance this rune. In patch 8.04, they tried moving the activation time to the 10th minute mark, but that led to a complete drop of this rune out of the meta. In the patch 8.10, the activation time was lowered to 8 minutes, and now we have it all around the solo queue. In patch 8.15, Riot Games are bringing it all the way back to 10 minutes. So let's see how quickly it falls out of the meta again. Riot Games are such Riot Games. Alright guys, that's it for now. This is how the patch 8.15 looks like. The marksmen have got stronger. A new assassin will replace the old one in the champions pool. Fizz makes a grand return to the solo queue, and supports will have a much harder time surviving the early game. So guys, watch the current meta and stay informed about the changes. As always, thank you so much for watching this video and good luck in your solo queue.